Da-di-da-di-da-da-di-da. Da-di-da-di-da-da-di-da. What do you hear over the air? CQ serenade. So you don't know just what it means. Dust your shoes off, shake out your jeans. Get on your feet, jump to the beat of CQ serenade.
Ready to go. Okay, well, we'll start the final class, lesson number 10. Before we get going at break, we've got some goodies over here. We've got, I think, lots of brownies that Mary and Nicole, isn't it? Natalie, sorry, has brought, and my wife Patricia has made some as well, and she provided some juice for everybody to enjoy as well at the break time. And she's very pleased that it's the 10th class today. But she has worked hard at making the handouts and things and helping us out along the way. So we do appreciate it, and hopefully everyone's had a good time for the last 9 anyway. So we will get going. So from the lesson 1, from day 1, we said we would learn some Morse code and learn all the characters and alphabet and so on, which I think we've covered. I offered everyone the chance to send Morse code. Obviously, everyone was not wanting to send or was too shy, so we'll see how that goes. And I said we'd do a standard QSO and review some digital techniques. Now, the digital techniques, what we have reviewed was basically CW Player and some of the other CW things that are online that you can use to help you practice. I may have time to show you one more tonight. We'll see how it goes. So we've covered 26 letters, 10 numerals, some punctuation, pro signs, and Q codes. We've got some QRN tonight as well to cope with. Common abbreviations, some practical QSO, communications we've covered. And I said invitations to send Morse code was given out just at random, and those that felt brave came up and sat and sent Morse code and really enjoyed themselves. It's not difficult once you get into it, it's just nerves. And I recommend you just practice at home, and then maybe the next session we'll all get a chance to sit around the table with keys and be able to send to each other, and maybe in pairs. We'll see how that goes. Digital software available to help learn Morse. You've all found something online, hopefully by now. That, if not, let me know, and we will review that. Suggestions for practice in the future after today. I recommend the ARRL information code practice files that are available to you. And they're in MP3 files and text files. I will review those shortly, a little bit more. Try copying at slower speeds on the air. There are stations around. I'm going to be giving out a handout tonight of some frequencies and some slow speeds that you can copy. They are available for everyone. It's just making time. Get on the air with a friend. James and I have tried 20 meters from Travelers Rest to Dacresville, and that works. We have actually used that. We tried 80 meters, we couldn't hear each other. Tried 40, that couldn't hear each other, but 20 meters we were successful. So it's worthwhile hopping around on the bands and try and set up a schedule with someone and do some slow speed. It's fun. And if you're worried about it, you've got a cell phone. You can always put a cell phone in the background and talk as well. But it's useful just to get on the air, get over the nerves. I suggest you practice each day, at least 20 minutes, even that the course is coming to an end. Because if you don't practice, you'll find that you will lose what you've done in the last 10 weeks. Use CW Player or similar to practice, I recommend. And we'll come to another class. Hopefully we'll be able to offer one later this year. We haven't decided when and where yet. So if you go to the ARL webpage, which I've given them, you can come up with this kind of information. February the 13th, 2019, you can do 5 words a minute, 7.5 words a minute, 10 words a minute, 18 words a minute, in fact. And if you get really good, you can go to 25 words a minute, 30, 35, and even 40 words a minute. All practice files online, available to you. And Gary will post these, so you'll be able to see these. Frequencies, if you want to listen from the ARRL, this is from the web page. You can actually go online and get the information, but it'll be available through this video as well. So last week I indicated that we would conclude the 10-week course, and I'd also try and review some of simple QSO. We do have a simple QSO that we'll do. A group QSO is a round robin. If there's more than two, say 3 operators, you can actually send as a round robin. Has anyone been familiar with what I call a round robin? And voice, they do the same thing. You can have a number, you can have 10 stations going in a round robin, passing it one to the other to the other. It can be directed by a coordinator, or it can be self-directed. And you can do that with a CW QSO just as easily. Gets more difficult, but it can be done, especially with 3 people. Gets more difficult as you get 4 or 5 or 6 people, unless it's a directed net. Then there's networks we'll talk a little bit about, and pile-up QSOs. Both Gary and I will talk a little bit about that. And we will also do some Morse code practice tonight as well. So answering a CQ. I've got a handout that I will pass out on this, but you can actually call CQ and try getting on the air, or you can hear someone calling CQ and try and answer them. Has everyone had their radios tuned and heard people calling CQ? Yes? And how many hands have we got that actually tried a CQ, answering a CQ online, either voice or CW? Nearly everybody. So it's just a matter of, if you've done it on the voice, it's not, the next step's quite easy with CW. It's just the jitters of getting going with this thing called a Morse key in your hand. But it becomes part of like a microphone. So first of all, you're going to have to learn how to zero beat your transmitter with CW. It's a little bit more complicated, but not a lot more complicated. And you've got to zero beat as close as you can to the existing Morse code person that's transmitting. If you get off beat or not quite lined up, you'll take up a little bit more of the band space. It's not a big issue, but people can get a little bit ugly if you're taking up more band space. So it's important to be able to zero beat. Does everyone know what we mean by zero beat? Okay, well, just going to walk over with this other rig over here. And James is going to press the Morse key and give you an idea what a zero beat. When you get one transmitter, say 7023 megahertz, and you're going to want a zero beat to it, if you bring the 2 carrier waves together, you won't hear anything. So what happens, this is going to give you a simulation. Do you want to just press the key down? You see how the pitch changes? Now when you get zero beat, there's your zero beat. You can't hear the noise. That's zero beating against his signal. So when he takes it up, it stopped transmitting. You see, now you've got your zero beat. Now to get a tone, you've got to be off the zero beat by about 600 hertz. And that's where you'll hear the... So now you've got your carrier wave, and you've got your tone, which is now 600 hertz off, roughly, and that's what you're hearing. So now you can actually hear the signal that James is sending. Does that make a little bit more sense? Hopefully it does.
So after you zero beat, you hear nothing, you retune?
Well, you use the IRT on the rig, or you can offset it a little bit to get the tone that you want. Usually you use the IRT on most rigs or something similar.
Okay.
a lot of rigs have got a little knob on them or some way of getting it fine-tuned. And you just want a few cycles off and you'll get the note that you need. You can actually, some people prefer a lower note to listen to. Some people like a higher note. So you can actually tune the note a little bit to hear what you'd like to hear. I like to listen to lower notes. Some people like listening to higher notes. It all depends on your preference. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Some people lose hearing at higher pitches, and some people lose the hearing at the lower pitches. So you might want somewhere in the middle.
Is it a little more difficult if you're trying to zero beat and they're actually still sending code? Because it's not a tone.
It can be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
You just have to go slowly and gently until you get it. Like if James was to send continually, once he puts the power back on, see, I went through the zero beat. I'm coming out of one side, go back to zero beat, and coming back out. You hear it?
Yes.
Now, if you put it on single sideband, you're tuning through single sideband. You'll actually, the guy will sound like Darth Vader on one side, and then he'll sound like a chipmunk on the other side, basically. And that's another way. You've probably heard that on sideband if you've tuned, and that's what happens. But on CW, you get the zero beat, and that's important. And to get on frequency, you both want to be on the zero beat, and you can tune off a little bit to get the noise that you need to hear, which is the signal of the CW itself. It was easier in very old days. We had something called MCW. I don't know if you know what MCW, modulated carrier wave, which put the sound tone onto the carrier wave, and that made it a lot easier for people to hear. You didn't have to get the zero beat, which they don't do much often. I haven't seen that for a while now. So that's basically zero beating. There's a little bit more to it. I have a link to a video that you can, later on, I'll give you that link, and it'll be available for you to look at. It's an 8-minute video by another ham that he explains this phenomenon very good, actually.
So if you have the same tone as the person that you're talking with, and you have both the same tone, are you zero beated?
It could be the same, it could be, yes.
Depends on the radio.
Depends on the radio.
Yeah, depends on the rig as well, the radio. It may not be exactly the same, because if my RT is not the same as your IRT, then you could be off a little bit.
Okay. But they'll hear me though, right?
More than likely, unless they have a very narrow filter on, they might not hear you. But if they're listening for other stations and they've got a narrow filter on, that's not very good practice. They should have the wider filter on first, and then narrow the filter down if they've got noise. But some hams will put the 200 hertz filter on, or even a finer filter, so they can pick out the DX and whatever. And by doing that, they might miss you calling. So, getting back to what we were saying, so the other thing you can do is call them when they've finished their CQ. It's sometimes called tailgating. Is you actually wait for the two hams, they're having the conversation, and when they've finished their conversation, wait till the last one signs off, and then you can try and kind of contact one of the two. Depending on when you actually started listening, whoever owned that frequency by calling CQ, theoretically you should try and call that station first. But it's not always the case. If you were after somebody else, a DX station, you might be calling, but that frequency wasn't maybe not the DX frequency owner at the time. So you've got to be a little bit courteous about that when you're online as far as the transmitting. So like you could try also calling your own CQ, find a spot on the band that's quiet, call QRL, see if it's busy. If not, then call CQ yourself and try getting a conversation going with someone else. And you could try, and it's not done too often that I can think of, but breaking into an existing QSO. In CW, the two operators might get annoyed, or they might just ignore you completely, unless they know you, and they might add you into their conversation. But usually it's more difficult to break into a CW conversation than a voice one. So Simplified, I've put a little Simplified thing there at the bottom for you to look at. You can call CQ, or you can answer a CQ. And basically you're going to give your RST, name, QTH, rig and power, and antenna, and the weather, and then a QSL information, and give us 73s. So I've tried to pot it down to the bare bones by putting that there for you to look at. Does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully it does. A typical contest style QSO would be like this. CQ and KN4GB, I've said the ARK, and then James comes back with KNOMES, and GNOMES DE KN4GB, your Q599, and then I'll put 453 if it's a contest, or it could be another number. It's a serial number. You're going to be recording your serial number because it is a contest. And then your Roger, your RST is 599, and there'll be another serial number there given as well. So stations at that time are giving serial numbers to each other for their log for the contest. So that's what that is. In fact, if you're ready, you know I'm going to send it, but I'm going to let you write it down. Or you can just listen to it. It's entirely up to yourself. You ready? Did everyone get that? I sent it a little bit slower than 20 words a minute, quite a lot slower in fact, so that you'd have a better chance of receiving that and understanding it. And if it was a contest, I would have gone straight into QRZ to try and get another contact. And That speed took 2 minutes to send that, but normally I'd be sending quite fast, more, shall we say, faster than that speed in a contest. You're trying to make as many contacts as you can. Yeah,
So
Wendy?
in the word gnomes, the O is actually a 0, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a 0. Yes. I haven't found out how to do a /0 on the keyboard yet here.
Do you actually send your, I mean, you personally, do you actually send your 9s, or do you do N?
I personally would send an N, but on this example, I wanted you to have practice with the 9s.
You're talking about for the RST.
The RST, yes. I would normally send. I'd try and get rid of all the unnecessary transmissions and make it as short as possible.
So they have a little game, I don't know if you've seen Morse Runner, have you seen that?
Yes.
They always do, they send in the 599, but they're always, using the N for 9.
Yeah.
Can you do T's for zeros as well?
You can do T's for zeros. I've heard that. When I was aboard ships, if it was all numbers, we'd abbreviate all the numbers.
But not in your call sign, right? That's frowned upon.
Not in your call sign, but a lot of the call signs I used were not ham radio call signs. They were military call signs. And then some of them didn't have numbers in them. So, my favorite social network is ham radio. What do I actually mean by that? Does anyone know what a network is? Yes? So Dan, how would you describe a network?
Like 2 meter, you're talking about like 2 meter net? They run a
2 meter net or?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people that get together, and if there's when they activate it, if there's a disaster or something, they'll activate it, and like if they have traffic to go to one place or another, somebody in the network might be in Spartanburg, and they got traffic to go to somebody in Spartanburg, and then they'll take that traffic to the person in Spartanburg and get it to them. So it's just a bunch of people that are working together in a geographic area to work during a disaster.
Yeah, that's correct. And there are other nets out there. In fact, I'm going to be giving a handout. There's a whole list of different nets on this handout. I'll give that later today. It's got frequencies and times as well. There's all kinds of nets out there. I've put one here on the slide, a National Traffic System, NTS for short. And during disasters or emergencies, radiograms are used to send critical life-saving messages and agency messages and health and welfare information from disaster victims to families and friends. During these times, the NTS works in concert with the ARRL, ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Services. And that is just another net that's available. When we have drills in Pickens at the Pickens Communications Group, Mary and I will be sitting at a radio and we will be operating part of a net with other colleagues to see if we have any issues. That's a good way to put it. And basically we're passing traffic backwards and forwards between different command centers to update them on any emergency issues. And that's what we do some days. So that's another kind of net. You want to add anything to that, Mary?
I was wondering about the radio relay league. Is that another traffic?
Yeah, the Radio Relay League is another way of network that's available, and traffic.
For the radio brand?
That's right. So that's moving on to Pileups, QSOs. So listen to find out the pattern of the DX station before you try and communicate. especially on CW. The station might send QRZ, DE, and his call sign, and then I'd send my call and give a 599. You respond with thank you and a 599 back, which would be nice. So if the pileup gets too huge or too large and there's lots of stations trying to contact this one person, the DX station will probably what we call split his frequency. He will transmit on one frequency and he'll tell the other stations to transmit on a different frequency. So you're doing two split frequencies, and he will then try and work different stations, and he may use more than one frequency. He may tell somebody to QSY to one frequency and another station to QSY to another frequency. So they may use 2 or 3 different frequencies, and he will be on one frequency of himself, and he will start exchanging messages. Now, it's very similar to what I used to call ship-to-shore radio. We used to have an initial call-up frequency of 500, and then the station we would call would be the coast station, and he would then tell us to QSY to a different frequency. And you'd be listening on one frequency and going to another frequency. So that happens quite a lot with pileups. So when calling, send your call sign, not the call of the DX station. He just wants to hear your call sign. And then you'll start exchanging a very short amount of information, and all you're trying to do is get in the log, his logbook, and you're trying to get him in your logbook. And you'll want just the frequency, the report, and your time, his call sign, your call sign for your logbook, and a serial number if he gives you one, and you give a serial number back. Anything to add to that, Gary?
I have got 2 things. First, these are goals for you. These are goals for the future. I don't want you to be intimidated, by hearing about these techniques and say, well, I'll never do that. You may do that. In a pileup, the critical thing is to be able to hear your own call sign. You'll be sending a call sign to them. You need to hear it back to know that he's coming back to you. And when you're sending your call sign to them, you can send it manually, or you may have memory in your radio or memory in your keyer. You may just be pushing a button to send your call sign. You may also program it to send 599 thank you. So that's the thing is that the DX station, the person that you're calling, is in charge. So try to do your best to listen to them and figure out what's going on. And the other suggestion I would have for you getting started, you all have the ARRL color charts, the frequency allocations. And on there, at the very bottom of each band, you'll for 80 meters, 40 meters, 15 meters, you'll see the novice allocation. Novices have high frequency allocations for CW only. And those are the frequency ranges where you're most likely going to find slow speed CW. And there are still a few thousand novices out there that are renewing their licenses. So that's a great place to hang out. They may be doing 5 word per minute code. You'll be able to copy it, you'll be able to come back, and you'll be able to practice the techniques that we talk about here.
Thank you, Gary. But yes, these are just for information of what is out there. You may never get to be, depending what your flavor is as far as ham radio. Some ham radio operators will never do a contest, for example, so you wouldn't need to worry about some of this information. But it's out there, and it's free for the pickings. So we've got a little bit of practice for you, and I'm going to just set the that going for you and see what you think. The first part of the this first number 1 here is actually a text from the ARRL site. So that was just the beginning of a broadcast from the ARRL. Anyone actually get that?
Text is from October 2017 QST, page 78.
Correct. That's 100% correct. Did everyone receive that? Or some of it? So that's the kind of thing, if you tune to the ARRL, you'll hear this. Or you can download the they've got an MP3, you can record that, download it to your computer, and play it back without the noise. You don't have to go online as far as your radio goes. You can do this on your computer. And number 2 is a continuation of their text. So that was part of their text. Anyone get that part?
Something about a link to the something or other.
Crossband link to stay in touch.
Megahertz crossband link to stay in touch, comma. That's correct. And what I've done is I've copied it in sections so we can stop and talk about it. So that's the kind of thing you're going to hear. And here's another part of it. So how did we do with that?
I got the period at the end.
Yay!
Even when the operator is outside the, I missed that last word.
Vehicle.
Vehicle.
Oh, vehicle.
Outside the vehicle.
Okay.
And try the next part of that sentence. So, anyone got that?
Was there many in there somewhere?
There's a many. Yes, that's the 4th word. The first word, I'll just send it by hand. It's
It's got to be a person's name.
person's name. Fennel.
Fennel.
Did you get the? Anyone get the second word?
Has given,
Given.
many,
Many. And
Pre.
Pardon?
pre.
I'll send the last word slowly for you so you can actually get that too. Presentations, yeah. So, and then to conclude, usually just so you know, this text will go on for quite a few minutes. So when you actually download it, if you do the MP3, you can actually stop it any time you want. And you can actually print the text out as well at the same, so you can check it yourself. So it is very useful. And I found it useful as a teaching tool. So the next part of that is coming up for you to take a listen to. And that was quite a long part of the sentence.
The word before the period is gathering.
Gatherings is the word before the period.
Radio, the word radio is in there?
Radio is in there.
On amateur radio
On amateur radio.
at Amfest,
Amfest,
including
including
Amvention
convention
and youth gatherings.
and youth gatherings. That's correct. So that's the kind of thing that you can go online and download and practice from the ARRL website. Now the next one you won't find on the website. It's one that we've made up. So this one's very short, and it's a brain teaser. Did you get the brain teaser? Or would you like to hear that again?
But, bins, bees,
But something BUTs in there.
Well, the first word, but,
Ben's bees.
Ben's bees,
Ben's bees, and then
but,
another but, and the next word,
Ben's best,
best bet, best,
oh,
best,
best bet,
best, best, BESS, BEST.
ST.
And then the last word was ending in a number. That's what it ended in. but the word is. And actually, if you send this fairly fast, it's got a nice rhythm to it. That's the only reason I put it in there for you. Try sending it faster, and it's got a good rhythm. It's a little bit like the bent nail that I sent the other week. So have a listen to this one and see what you think of this one. And well done on that.
Morse code.
Letters are represented in Morse code.
Yes, they are. That's what we're doing. Now, the last one here is I've sent each word twice on purpose, so it gives you time to, you write it down once, you can listen to it, or you can write it down twice. Ready? So each word is sent twice. So you don't have to say each word twice, but just wondering how you did on getting.
By long and short sounds, it's the beginning of it.
Yeah, so that is the beginning. Then there's a comma, which could have thrown everybody off, but there's a comma after these sounds.
The last words are end dashes.
Usually called dits and dots.
That is correct. Did anyone find the mistake I put in there on purpose?
DISTS.
Yes, somebody did spot it. You see, DISTS. And I'm just going to send one. You don't need to write this one down, but just listen to this rhythm and see what you think. Did you recognize it from earlier? It's the one we said about the butt bends, bees, just a little bit faster, but the rhythm starts coming into play as you get a little bit faster. You hear more of a rhythm. And that's what you'll get with some of the code, is it definitely has a given rhythm to it. Cool. Well, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Might be a little bit early, but we've got goodies over here, and that's why I'm saying 15 minutes, so you can actually have a drink and have some nice goodies that everyone's brought in and socialize a little bit, and then we'll come back. So there's the bell. We'll get going. Welcome back. We've got James Robinson, KN0MES on a key at the back of the classroom. And I've got myself, Melvin Robinson, KN4GB. We're going to just try a little experiment. James is actually using a QRP rig, and we've got a receiver over there. And I'm going to call CQ, and James is going to try and answer me.
to me like you were in Russia.
Well then,
I heard your call sign starting out with a R.
oh no.
Yeah, your call sign came across as. So in my call sign you sent R instead of a K.
I mixed my R's and K's up, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is a K, da di da.
Yeah.
R is da da da, dit da dit, and I flipped them.
Yeah.
Cause I'm on the spot, and I'm like, oh man.
That's okay.
Well, there's more to come when you're on the air. Then whoa, baby.
Yeah. I also flip F's and L's.
Yeah.
F,
That's common.
F, and L.
Yeah.
I flip those all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And apparently R's and K's.
Human brain.
Yeah.
But that was well done, James.
I tried.
And it's when you're in a classroom situation, the nerves even are worse than sitting at home in front of the rig.
Yeah, they are.
But I'll send back to you now. Ready?
Before I send it, does anybody else want to do this?
Anybody else?
I don't want to monopolize it. I'm happy to.
So I might overpower this radio here.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So number 4.
Yeah, just warm up a little bit if you like, just before you get going.
Still warming up. Okay. Okay, so let me try your call one time. Sorry, getting.
Very good. Everybody get that one as well?
The icon, or I close the radio, the L icon.
Icon. Neat little device here.
So I thought it'd be fun to try it, to see what everybody's reaction is to it. I've put up here possible future follow-up Morse class, when, we haven't decided when, and possibly later in 2019. I've put what I thought might be some requirements, and these aren't carved in stone at all. These are just my thoughts, and I know Gary has asked other people, for yourselves, to give your thoughts as well. Hopefully you will email them to us. So one of the things that I've put here is, if we're going to run a class like with everybody with a key and everything else, it'll behoove you to know and recognize all the Morse code alphabet and the numbers, at least for the basics. Now it could be at 5 words a minute, it could be at 3 words a minute, that's fine, but you can't sit in the class and then say, well, I don't remember what an L is or K is or an M is. You can to some extent, but the more letters you're missing, the harder it's going to be for everybody else. So, and I would expect everyone to be able to bring a Morse key, whether it's a straight key or iambic key. If you've got a key, that's great, and hopefully wired with a plug on it so that we can plug it into either an oscillator or a small transmitter like we have tonight. Notebook, and obviously something to write with. And what I would really like to see in the next class is everybody participate in sending as well as receiving, because it's okay to receive, but you do have to be able to send as well. So it's a two-part thing. It's like reading and writing. You can read a book, but if you can't write, well, or you can write, but you can't read, that kind of thing. You've got to be able to participate in both to really enjoy Morse code, I think. You don't need, like I said, to send it X words a minute, as long as you know what A is and B is and so on. Bring the key you intend to use on the air would be a good thing to do. What I'd like to be able to do is have no stress. I don't want people to get red in the face and upset about it. That's not what it's about. It's about having fun. We can all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and just remember what 8 dots is, that's fine. You just repeat what, like James has done. I put James on the spot. He didn't know he was going to be sending tonight. But I know he can send, and he likes his bug key, but I don't have a bug key yet. I'm going to probably get one and learn how to use it. So learn how to operate the key. Now, I've been operating not this key, but a straight key since I was 16 years old, or even earlier. I actually started learning Morse when I was 8 years old. But everybody to their own. I like a straight key, and that's all the military provided was a straight key. They didn't provide anything else. And it was heavier than this one. And participate hands-on is what I'd really like to see, because I think that's a good way to learn, hands-on. And receiving and possibly even sending and receiving with a buddy in class, So it might not just be all of us together. If we have another class, it might be partly all of us together, but then partly as a two of you one-on-one. That also helps. When I was learning Morse code in the classroom, we could sit with two people and learn. We had to have headphones on, unfortunately, but that does work as well and helps, and it can be very good. So your thoughts, you don't have to give them tonight, you could email them, and I appreciate everyone coming to the course. I've enjoyed teaching it, it's been fun, and I know my wife will be happy to know that her typing has come to some good use. And thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Da-di-da-di-da-da-di-da, da-di-da-di-da-da-di-da. What do you hear over the air? CQ serenade. So you don't know just what it means. Dust your shoes off, shake out your jeans. Get on your feet, jump to the beat of CQ serenade.